Welcome back to The Thread. We're at Ravenelli's in Collinsville, Illinois, where we've come around the table to break bread with one another. And you know, in Jesus' day, when you came to table with somebody, that meant you considered them family. They became family as soon as their feet went under your table. And that's the idea behind the organization that Bob and Chrissy Sturgis have started. They're serving 18 to 25-year-old at-risk young men by offering them a seat at the table.
Seat at the Table was founded as a nonprofit, really continuing the work that my wife Chrissy and I have already done on a personal level. And it is to provide residential mentoring and community resources for at-risk 18 to 25-year-olds. And it did start with a family member who was just at a tough point in life and needed maybe a different environment in which to grow to adulthood. It led to God tugging on our heart and said, there's more.
Our thought process was, how could we not do it? Like, how can we follow the teachings of Jesus and say no to this person who needs shelter and who needs love and who needs a family around them? The more meals a family has around the table, the less high-risk behavior that the kids engage in. And so we know that there's something physiologically goes on in them, in that act of sitting around the table with family, reminding ourselves of who we are, where our identity is, who our family is, who's going to call us to accountability, who's going to love us and encourage us. If they have those connections by the time they hit 25, their chances of success in life skyrocket.
It is God's gift. He moved someone else's heart to say, I may not be in a position to take people in, but financially I can get you a building.
For us, we've only ever been able to do this in small numbers, but to have 4 bedrooms in that lower apartment where we can get our arms around 4 young men and help them, just support them in whatever way is necessary for them to take the step into good and independent adulthood, we can't wait.
It has a lot of what I would call community space. So it has areas particularly for us to have family meals. And we'll be here as parental presence for them, but also allow them to grow to be independent adults. It would allow us to, on a regular basis, at least twice a week, as much as their work or school schedules will allow, to have family meals together. And there's others who have volunteered to come in and do Bible studies and do other types of mentoring with them. We're trying to put a community around them.
And so there you see these little trajectory shifts as people start to feel a part of, like I said, something bigger than themselves. For us, boys have been our thing, and then those were the kids that God brought our way. With a seat at the table, we're looking forward to enlarging that to include girls too.
You know, a lot of nonprofit work is what I would call tier 1, and that's physical assistance, material goods, financial assistance. And then there's relational, like a big brother's big sister where you're mentoring, but you're not living with. This is what I would call tier 3. This is more in-depth. They're literally coming into your home. There aren't as many who will do that, but they're out there. So my job is to go find them.
As we've gone along, and now that God has continued to draw us into that, the reward is so great. The reward is always much bigger than whatever we've invested.
A seat at the table, serving that often forgotten group of young people that are no longer minors, but still in need of that family support. And I love the name, A Seat at the Table. There's something about a meal. A meal's important. It was important to Jesus too. I mean, it was a meal that he provided those thousands on the hillside with just a couple of fish and a few dinner rolls. It was a meal that he shared with his disciples when he told them what was going to happen after he was betrayed and arrested in Jerusalem. And it was a meal, breakfast on the beach, fish grilled over a charcoal fire that he provided for his disciples when he appeared to them after his resurrection. A meal is a means of building community. I love this new wave that many of our restaurants have adopted here in town of community dining, where they have long tables and bench seating where folks have to sit with one another and get to know each other as they break bread together. It's a means of building community. Soup and Share. They use a meal to build relationships with those that they're serving and move to their needs. Food Outreach. They're moving to the needs of those suffering with cancer and with HIV by building community, providing the healthy meals, but also providing a safe community, supportive community for them as they walk their walk. And a seat at the table. It's not just a seat at the table, it's a seat at the family, because when you go to table together, you're calling them family. A seat at the table. We could do the same. That's what we're called to do. Jesus went to the cross for us so that we could go to table with him. He paid the penalty for our sins so that we could be forgiven and be called family. And he's asked us to go and love others and do the same. And that's the point. Jesus didn't just have a meal with his disciples or those who were following him. He ate with sinners. Luke 15, that's what the Pharisees criticize him for. They say, this man receives sinners and he eats with them. He calls them family. That's what we're called to do too. So maybe it's time that you break bread with some folks. Just have a meal. And here's the secret. Truth be told, you'll both be dining with sinners because we all fall short of the mark. But Christ paid it all. Jesus paid it all so that we could go to table with him and to table with others. As Paul says in Ephesians 2, he broke down the dividing wall of hostility. It's done. He's brought us to him, and then now we can go out and love others with the love that he's loved us. That's pretty cool. Just like Abbott EMS. They don't pick the next person that they're going to care for. It's the next person in need who crosses their path. And that's what we're called to do. Love the next person who crosses your path. And it may start with a meal.